It's been going on for about 8 years. I always like to refer to them as the greater family of man because they're not so much aliens. They're really our ancestors, a lot of them. They're returning now.
On your site I was reading it says extra and ultra-terrestrial off-world visitors. What does that mean?
Well, some of the extraterrestrials they're in this dimension, and then there's ultra-terrestrials that are interdimensional beings. They're existing along the vibrational continuum just out of this dimension, and they can drop their frequencies down and become visible to us if they desire. So there's a lot of this whole enigma, you might say, has many, many levels to it. There's low-level contacts, and there's a lot of government involvement and things of that nature, and we try to avoid that.
How do you know this, James? How do you know there's a lot of governmental connection between the low-level interdimensional and extraterrestrial and interdimensional beings?
Well, mainly because I'm actually working with some of the physicists that were involved in it and have actually left that system right now. I can't really mention their names because they'll be, put in jeopardy. But they've given me in all the details on what's really going on.
So you have American physicists and scientists who are telling you that the federal government is in communication and working with these lower dimensional beings and have been working with them, and they chose if that's true, for what reason did they choose to leave? What was the mitigating circumstances that caused them to choose to leave this type of extraterrestrial communication?
I think a lot of it was that just the energy around it and the karma around it and just all the nonsense. It wasn't serving humanity, and they just didn't want to have any further part of it. And there's quite a few of them actually that have come forward about this and talked about all the back engineering. The problem is that there's groups out there, pretty much elite groups and rogue military, black projects, things like that. And their whole focus is to grab the technology and use it for, the war technology. And that is the main problem because most of those groups, their focus is shoot them down, steal the technology, and use it to be one-up on the so-called enemy, which actually we create ourselves. But it's just nonsense. It's our whole policy has to change. The consciousness has to change around this, and even the media and a lot of the movies coming out are all trying to create a lot of fear and a lot of negativity around this. But the low-level contacts and the other stuff is just a thimbleful compared to the rest of the universe. Most of it's benevolent.
And how did these American scientists migrate toward you? How did you find them, and what created the safety factor or the trust factor between you and them? Have they come to the ranch?
Yeah, they have. Many of them have come up to the ranch. They've heard me speak. I've spoken quite a bit. I was on, actually ABC came out here, Fox News came out and did a special on it, and then Evening Magazine. We've had a lot of press and the International UFO Congress, and I've actually spoken at universities as well.
So did ABC and Fox film these lights and beings?
They came out. The problem with them is they came out and the equipment they brought, the guys weren't really that good at getting it, and it's hard to shoot at night. So they did, what I did is I gave them a lot of our footage, and they did actually see some of the ships come in, but by the time, whenever you get a new photographer up here, their first reaction is their jaw just drops and they stare and they don't even lift their camera up when it happens. And so they have to kind of get indoctrinated slowly. And you got to be pretty quick because some of these ships will just appear and pop in, and by the time they get their gear powered up and turned on and on the object, it's gone.
You know what we have to do, Daniel? Yeah. We're coming for a visit, James.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have to get Craig.
That's what we tell people. We said, don't take our word for it. Come and see yourself. And we've got probably over 2,000 witnesses now documented.
Well, this is why I wanted to have you on the show.
Might be more fun than Neil Donald Walsh.
Guaranteed. So this is why we wanted to have you on, because you're not talking about it. You're saying, show up, here it is, do it, and you're doing it all the time. So we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more specifics about what is really going on. This is News for the Soul. Back in 1 minute. Hi, everybody. This is SETI.org, and James has been in regular contact, he says, with many extraterrestrials or ultra-terrestrials for many years. 4 years, James?
8 years.
About 8 years.
8 years. That's a while. That's a few. Now, you've had a contact, he said, with many different kinds of ships, and what specific communication have you had?
A lot of the communication they were giving me was concerning our past, our ancient history, and kind of teaching me a little bit about the nature of the universe and things of that level. But it gave me a whole different understanding about, who we are genetically and spiritually, and the different, we're just a big genetic soup down here from many different nations that have been involved in seeding the earth, you might say, not only with their own physical genetics, but with plant life and animal life, and it's just like one grand experiment, you might say, that's been going on for quite some time.
Do you think this relates in any way to what Zacharias Sitchin teaches about the 12th planet and the return of Nibiru and this kind of line of thought?
That's part of the story. It's much, much bigger than that. That goes way, way back in the ancient past, but since then, if you get into the days of Atlantis and Lemuria, those were actually Palladian colonies that attracted quite a few other star nations to join them. So we're a very big collective, a big genetic soup, you might say, down here.
So this is about us from the planet, from the Lyra constellation, and that combination. Does it go back to the Lyra, the Lyra constellation, or the Lyra system?
The Palladians, actually, their most ancient ancestors were Lyrians, and those were some of the first colonies here.
And what made them come here? What is the grandiose nature of this particular planet?
Well, they were just kind of journeying out into the universe. Unfortunately, they were kind of a conquering race. They would go out, into the universe and settle a lot of places, and then they would intermingle with even a lot of different, races and things of that nature. But when they came here, it was just to start off the first colony, and they pretty much blew it and got wiped out. And then the second attempt was that was when the second attempt, they talked a lot about, even in Genesis 6, when they said the celestial sons of God saw the women of man to be fair and took them as wives. The celestial sons of God were actually the Palladians, and they talked about the giants on the land at that time, and the giants were the leftover Lyrians, because the ancient Lyrians were very tall.
Are called the Anunnaki.
Yes,
So do you believe that the book of Genesis, that the true birth of what Genesis is about, is this Pleiadian group and their history?
It's pretty much a lot of their history. I think it's more than that. I think it's more than just any one group, because there's quite a few groups here, even at that time. But it's hard to go back. It depends on which time period, because the most ancient teachings, there was a lot of genetic manipulation going on. And that Sitchin talks a lot about that.
Right. And where do you think we are, James? In two things I'd like to ask is, if without having a near-death experience, which opens your consciousness up to view this reality regardless, and that you seem so grounded in your everyday conversation, talking about sisters and children and your family in this compound, how do we, I have a certain connectiveness to this stuff. I mean, I have run across experiences during my so-called soul journeys after the near-death experience. How do we teach our listeners, who are open to consciousness and open consciously, to be able to have these kinds of same experiences, maybe who will never get